Good morning, everybody. Can folks hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes,
Okay,
I can hear
thanks.
you.
All right, thank you. So we're dealing with a major storm in the area, and we've had a number of people say they couldn't make it, they've lost power and so on. But I thought for those who can, we would still hold this and proceed. So I'm going to give it another minute or two, and we'll see if others can join, and then we'll get started. So thanks for your patience. Okay, well, let's get started. So thanks for those of you who are joining us. I'd also like to introduce myself. I'm David Yoakum. I'm the director of the Master of the Architecture program at Georgia Tech. And I'm also joined today by some students at Georgia Tech. I think I see Rohan and Matt and Anna. Are you guys on?
Yes.
No need to
Good morning.
turn on your cameras or microphones yet. Thanks for joining us. For those of you who are interested in our program, this is our Master of Architecture virtual open house. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we're dealing with a lot of power outages and storm interruptions. We have some folks from Georgia Tech who are going to join us, but don't have power. So we'll just roll forward anyway. And I thank you for folks who are interested in our program and joining us. And what we have today is just a short, maybe 20-minute presentation to give you an orientation to our school holistically, and also give you an introduction to the Master of Architecture program and answer any questions you might have. As I mentioned, we have some students on the line who are welcome to join in at any time and answer those questions. And then we can also take them and if they're more complicated, send them to me in email and we'll get them taken care of. So folks can see our screen. I'll just get started, and then, as I said, we'll end up with a little bit of discussion and questions. So this is the virtual open house session for September 27th. Thank you for joining. And if you're joining late, again, I'm David Yoakum. I'm the director of the Master of Architecture program at Georgia Tech. If you're not familiar with the School of Architecture, we have a wide diversity of programs. We have a Master of Architecture program, which this session is focused on. We have a Master of Science in Architecture, which is our non-professional degree program, but it allows you to specialize in a specific course of study. We also have Urban Design, and we also have a PhD program. If you are, by chance, interested in the Master of Science program or the PhD, I've put a link in the chat. You should move over to that session for some specific information. But welcome today, and thank you for joining us. In particular, the Master of Architecture program, it is our 3.5 or 2-year program preparing you for a degree in architecture and also for the profession. It's a comprehensive education in foundational design skills, integrated and collaborative design experiences. And we make it a point to expose you to timely and relevant challenges of contemporary design and building. This last sentence, I think, sums up everything about our program, is that we want you to graduate with the training and experiences to make architecture with meaning in the world. We have our core values. Entrepreneurship, connection, technology, design, learning and knowledge, and community, diversity, and inclusion. When we have a program that's full of diverse students, such as yourselves from a wide variety of backgrounds and set of interests, it's really important that we meet you where you are and that we do so with a core set of values that sustain a really healthy education. And that's what sets our program apart from many others that you might find, is that our values are student-centered, and they're here to support you on your journey through this this very rigorous and exciting program. We also have, as I mentioned, a Master of Science of Architecture program. That's a shorter degree, non-professional. There are areas of study such as design computation, design and health, and high performance building. We also have a Master of Urban Design program, and students sometimes do a dual degree course of study. If you're interested in that, let me know. But what's very compelling is that you can take studios with both sets of students, and you can do it in a way where you're studying urban design or architecture. So that's one of the features of our school, is multiple programs. We also have a PhD program in architecture, and that's for those of you who want to move on to an advanced standing in architecture and perhaps do research, publications, writing, or teaching. The core of our program is really people. We are teaching architecture that is focused on design for people. And that's whether it's in a rural setting or urban setting or international setting. If we're not here to serve what you're interested in and get you started on a professional degree that's exciting and empowering, then we're not doing our job. We emphasize our students. We have student ambassadors who have a very strong voice, both outward facing to new prospective students such as yourself, but also to sustain the health of the school when we look inward and to help process any concerns, but also to be a strong voice during the experience. We have a student advisory council, and these students are those who meet with our leadership regularly to advance both interests, but also ongoing challenges in the program. We have a diverse set of student organizations. Some of them are professional, such as the AIA student chapter of our professional organization in our industry, Equity in Architecture, NOMAS for National Organization of Minority Architecture Students, and specialized groups such as ECO, which take on sustainable initiatives and environmental strategies that confront us as design professionals. Our faculty, you'll find, is very widely specialized and very productive, producing not just content in research, but also teaching and practice. One of the special features of our program are our visiting critics. And we have a wide range from initial practitioners who have just left academia or their studies and are getting into teaching. And for example, we have our Ventulant Next Fellows. We always have two of these. These are very young practitioners, you might say fresh out of study and starting into their practice and teaching. And they alternate. Right now we have two, Michael Stradley and Christina Shivers. And we like to recruit folks who are developing a strong voice in the profession and in the discipline so that you as students, as you're undertaking your studies, have both exposure to more experienced practitioners and teachers, but also the youngest voices in our profession. These are our Ventulant Next Fellows. One of the most distinguished chairs that we have at our school is the Portman Critic. We're super excited this year that Thomas Pfeiffer will be joining us in the spring. I'll speak a bit about the Portman Studio in just a minute, but what we like to do is invite practitioners who are at the absolute highest level of their work, and they tend to be mature, established voices in our profession who are practicing at the highest level. And all students in the second year of our program, whether you're coming in as a 3.5-year student or whether you're starting as a more advanced standing 2-year student, all of our students have a studio with this critic. So if you don't know Thomas Pfeiffer, after this call or right now, go ahead and take a look at his practice's work. It's really amazing. We also have a Ventulant chair, Michael Murphy. This is a voice. This is a practitioner who has a voice in the profession that is doing very distinctive things across a wide range of practices. Michael Murphy was very recently with Mass Design Group. That's MASS. You should also look up his practices work. He's recently gone out on his own, but he's focused on humanitarian work internationally, really about taking on social issues, community building, issues of equity and social injustice. And he has been our Venture Chair for 3 years, I believe, and he will be joining us again in the spring of 2025. One of the features of our school, whether you are in the Master of Architecture program or whether you are in the MS or PhD, is our design and research. We have we have many different aspects of that, and the first one is how design and research frames the Master of Architecture program, and then I'll talk about some of the labs. In design studios for the Master program, the first year core is a one and a half year. That's a 3-semester sequence that begins with an immersive summer session in architecture. We've recently changed that. We've now moved the summer session to the end of the first year. But it concludes with the full training and tools necessary to design digitally, including our digital fabrication and robotics lab. So these first 3 semesters are those that give you a strong foundation for future study, both in design and eventual research. In your second year of study, you're taking advanced studios. Right now, we're coordinating a whole housing studio focused on multifamily and co-living housing in urban settings. And that concludes with what I mentioned previously, which is the Portman Prize Studio. Again, Thomas Pfeiffer is our Portman Prize critic for the upcoming year. And this is one of our flagship studios where you're studying with a distinguished professional, but you're also taking on big issues that are facing our region or our climate or building technology or specific building typologies. And this is a competition studio where all students are doing the same program, and it ends with a special prize jury with awards that have monetary value, actually cash awards for first, second, third, and so on. So it's a very high energy semester in your second year. Your third year is really focused on expanding design into the research realm. So you're taking studios with advanced practitioners who have a specialization, whether it's on urban design or fabrication or theory, and it's helping you develop a focus while you're getting your master's degree on things that you might like to do in your practice or in your research. I mentioned the Venture Chair with Michael Murphy. This is just an example. If you are in your third year, that's when you would take a studio with our Venture Chair or have the opportunity to. This was recently one of his studios that traveled to Japan to understand and investigate the memorial of Isamu Noguchi relative to the atomic bombings that happened in Japan in World War II. We also have specializations of research that are local. This was one that focused on local community, the west side of Atlanta. That was not just about bridging communities, but actually designing a bridge that is slated to be built in the near future, spanning over a set of railroad tracks. We also support our design and research through our specialized coursework. Part of the stream that you'll discover in our program is called our Integrated Building Systems. And that's 3 courses where you're studying structures, you're studying systems, you're studying design, you're studying building enclosure, and you are able to understand design not just from an abstract standpoint, but from a very particular and systemized standpoint. So that has to do with structure, building slabs, building enclosure, and you learn how to detail buildings and how to design them by studying precedents and remodeling them. So that's one of the core streams that's probably one of the most intense in our program, but also the most rewarding because it really helps to set you up for success in practice. We have a whole host of extracurricular activities too. Students often compete in student competitions. And one of the ones that we are most well known for is our participation in the ULL Hines student competition. And it brings together students from multiple disciplines, and you engage in a 2-week competition for an actual site in a North American city. Georgia Tech has done incredibly well, not only winning many runner-ups, but actually the finalists and winning entries just recently. And this is a national competition where prizes are between $10,000 and $50,000. It's really significant. And Georgia Tech is one of the leaders in this competition. So if you are all interested in urban design, you can do this as an architecture student, and I strongly encourage you to participate. We have a digital fabrication lab, which is not just with materials, but also with robotics and advanced fabrication techniques. That's open to all students, and you can use it during your whole course of study here, whether you're on the 3.5 or 2-year program. These are just some slides showing the scale and different materiality of undertakings, whether it's wood or concrete or carbon fiber. And also having to do with not just speculative proposals, but actually real-world challenges, in this case, such as the material reuse of turbine blades and how they can be repurposed in our world. We have design and research labs, which also have to do with theory and not just fabrication. Thanos Economou is one of our distinguished professors who has written an entirely new design and drawing program called Shape Machine, which allows designers to use advanced calculations and geometric configurations to design using shapes rather than just data or lines. It's a really compelling way to approach design. This is an example of the type of research that finds its way into practice and design in the school. We also have the Digital Building Lab. Professor Russell Gentry leads this, which helps us, it connects research to practice in architecture, engineering, and operation. And it's specifically focused on the platform of digital practice. And finally, we also have research. I'll mention a couple more. We have a high-performance building lab. In particular, this lab has found success through the Solar Decathlon project, sponsored by the United States government. They've had tremendous success and accolade in designing residential structures that are very high-performing for a wide variety of dwelling types and income strata. We have our Flourishing Communities Collaborative. This is led by our chair, Julie Kim. It's an academic lab, but it's specifically focused on community engagement in social outreach. And Julie runs some amazing studios in the upper levels of our program. This is the design and research level, your 3rd year, where you are engaged with the community and, in fact, focused on real-world challenges in getting projects built that find success in the social fabric of our cities. We also have a heritage building information modeling lab. So something that's, I think, really important to understand is that when you're a student here at Georgia Tech, you're not just a student of architecture, but you're also participating in the research that leads to future advances. And that's a distinguishing characteristic of our program. And I encourage you, as you look at other programs, to really ask, how much am I involved in the research? How much do I get a chance to participate in studios that can make a difference? And I think what you'll find is that Georgia Tech is really distinctive in this aspect. And that comes from our position as a Tier 1 research institute nationwide. I'd like to change course a little bit as we wrap up here and talk about some of our additional features of our program. We have international education opportunities, such as a Modern Architecture, Modern Cities. It's an amazing program that allows you to travel for multiple weeks throughout Western Europe. Greece and Italy program, and also a Design, Develop, and Build program. This is a map showing the path of our Modern Architecture program. It's been tremendously successful, I think, over 15 to 20 years in taking students to major cities in Western Europe and showing them not only landmark examples of architecture, but also going into practices, actual offices, and being able to talk with practitioners at the highest level. So this is a tremendous program. We also have one that involves Greece and Italy. And we have a design, develop, build that's led by our associate chair, Daniel Berlecken. And this has been underway since 2012 in our school. One of the most important aspects of any program, whether it's Georgia Tech or any other that you're considering, is how we are preparing you for practice, and how we are also giving you the scaffold and the tools you need to get out there, get a job, and do the things you want to do. We're really, really focused on this. So we have a number of efforts. We have a career fair that links you over to approximately 50 different firms that come through in various years. Students find that when they go to this career fair in their first year, in their second year, by the time they get to the third year, they know what they're doing, their portfolio is in great shape, and they're building connections with potential employers. I think the best way to describe this is that it's all about connections. Firms are seeking people, and students are seeking the best possible firms who they want to work with. And we're here to support that interchange and really make it a lively one so it's successful for you. We also have a practicum program, and this is a special one-week program that happens during spring break of every year. We had a pause of it during the pandemic, as you can imagine, but it's starting back up again. The map on the screen here shows the varied locations and also some of the incredible practices that we pair students who are currently in our program with to go out for and work with for a week and get immersed in an office and really get a sense of practice at the highest levels. That's something that's distinctive in our program. I think one of the things that we do encourage is entrepreneurship. And that allows us, with this type of attitude, what we do is we get a lot of ideas from students who want to start things or have new ideas for how they might want to start their own practice. And in a more bespoke level, we are able to support that, whether it's pairing you with a specific office or a specific researcher or someone who's got a business that might serve your interest, your very focused interest in architecture. I think no school exists without rankings. Unfortunately or fortunately, Georgia Tech does very well in these internationally. And we're proud of it. We like to think that we are among a group of aspirational peers who are always trying to improve our program and not just resting on our laurels. So as that's recognized, we're happy to broadcast that to the greater world. Finally, I would just like to have a couple slides here that if you're not from Atlanta, and you're thinking about moving to Atlanta as you consider various schools, you should understand that Atlanta is an incredible place to live. It is a city that's changed dramatically in the last 20 years. It has grown in population and in building scale. It's grown in significance with major urban programs such as the Beltline. It has also grown with plenty of Fortune 500 companies moving to the city. So it's changed dramatically, and that comes with both headaches, but also possibilities. The possibilities are that the job market is really strong here, both in traditional architectural fields and across a wide variety of professions. And that serves to help our graduates really launch their careers. We have a lot of great architecture to check out. John Portman is one of our famous graduates and practicing architects. Renzo Piano Building Workshop has a project here at the High Museum of Art. We have cultural institutions that support a vibrant social and basically human experience in our city. This is the Beltline, which if you don't know about, you should learn about very quickly. It's a 22-mile loop around our city that was devised by a student of ours at Georgia Tech, Ryan Gravel, who was both a student of architecture but also urban design, and it's profoundly transformed our city. It's still in progress of being built, but it's linking neighborhoods around the city and providing alternative modes of transport and social connection. We have a healthy cultural city, whether it's music, whether it's film, or whether it's the commercial and shopping and retail side even. This is a really interesting project called Ponce City Market, which was the conversion of a Sears warehouse into a bit of a landmark project, you would say, that deals with both with adaptive reuse, but also creating new social nexuses inside the city. If you're into sports, we have the Mercedes-Benz Stadium that hosts a wide variety of programs. Georgia Tech is special in terms of how it's located and where it's located. I think if you were to ask any student, it seems like a bit of an idyllic garden in the middle of the city. It's located right in the middle of Midtown. It's on 400 acres, and it's local to everything. So while you're studying here, you're proximate to everything you might want to do with any spare time you have. The campus is a really amazing place. It's a living laboratory of ecological design, landscape architecture, and architecture. And we're lucky to have the kind of setting that we do, so central to a city that's growing around us. We have examples of architecture on the campus, which are really trend-setting and landmark. This is the Kendeda building. It's one of the most advanced sustainable buildings on our campus and has had international recognition for how sustainability, material reuse, and extremely low energy deployment of resources can take place on an institutional setting. And these are the kind of buildings that really set the standard for what our graduates can do. This is the interior of it. It's a mass timber building. Finally, where will you study? This is our School of Architecture. This is our primary home. This is the Hinman Research Building. It's a really amazing space that brings together all of our studios, first year, second year studio, PhD student, faculty members into one big multi-story laboratory for architecture. And this would be your home during the program. It's an award-winning project, but I think what's most important is that it's inspiring, and we use it as a laboratory to talk about detailing, to talk about scale, talk about lighting and daylighting, and how, as a community, we can live and design together in one big facility. This happens to be an awards day where end of year where students are receiving awards for portfolio and also studio prizes. So finally, I would say, to these types of sessions that we're having multiple of them during the fall. This is an opportunity for you to reach out to us and learn more, and also learn about us and ask any questions. So you can follow us on social media. Instagram is one of our primary outlets. We also have a monthly newsletter that comes out that tells you exactly what's going on for our lectures and events on campus. If you have any questions, you can ask me. I'm in the lower right-hand corner here. I'm the director of the Master of Architecture program. Also, I would point your attention to Robin Tucker, who's in the lower left-hand corner of this slide. She and Nitra, who's also on the slide, are the two primary resources for all of our students, whether they're prospective during the recruitment or application process, or during their tenure here. Robin and Nitra and myself really give you the answers you need to be successful. So I encourage you to reach out to us. So with that, I'm going to pause the slideshow here, and let me just stop sharing here. And I'm happy to take any questions that you might have about our program. While I'm doing this, if the students who are on the call, if you could turn on your cameras, that would be great. And thanks, Anna. Thanks, Rohan. And I will stop sharing here. And we can just have a discussion, answer any questions that you might have. Matt, thanks for turning on your camera as well. Okay, so Jessica, do you accept the Duolingo test as proof of proficiency for international students? Well, that's a first one. I've never heard of the Duolingo test. I don't think we do. We tend to use TOEFL, and you need to have a minimum score. I think it's 99 or 100. So Jessica, I would encourage you to follow up with an email to me about that, and I will get it to Robin. Unfortunately, Robin can't be on the call today to answer those types of questions because she's at home without power due to the storm. But I will get an answer to you for that. While we're waiting for any questions, I would invite Anna, Matt, Rohan, please feel free to just to speak up if you want to add anything that you think I missed in the presentation. Now would be a great time.
I guess
No
something
pressure. Go ahead.
Something that I would add that you kind of touched on is with being in the heart of Atlanta, there is a lot of continuous exchange with professionals in our area. I'm involved in 2 of the student organizations. And so through that, I've made a lot of connections with firms and individual practitioners that have allowed me to get internships where I've learned a lot. So I would say that location is definitely one of my favorite parts about Georgia Tech.
And I'll kind of piggyback off that one. The career fair that happens in February is held every year, and that's a great opportunity. I mean, there's plenty of other career fairs that Georgia Tech kind of hosts each year, but the architecture and construction one, it hosts a bunch of firms from Atlanta, the surrounding regions of the city, and that's been an incredible opportunity because you get to go around. I believe it's like several hours, and you get to bring your resume, bring your portfolio, talk to a bunch of different firms, and get your name out there. And that's a great way to network and begin to understand the firms in the city.
I mean, primarily talking about the campus as a whole, I think it is extremely resource heavy. Like there's so many things it has to offer, so much within and beyond the College of Design, School of Architecture. And as architects, I think most of us have varied interests, and like many of us want to branch out into so many different aspects of design and the creatives. So I really believe Georgia Tech has an amazing plethora of things. Like even I've been here over a year now. I'm still learning about new things that are available to me. So I think it can probably get overwhelming, but if it's all broken down into things that are available, I think it's a really good place to make the best out of what we want to do. That's one thing I did want to put out.
Thank you, Rohan. Matt and Anna, those are great points.
How's it going? My name's Jay Schulte. I'm a senior right now at the University of Central Florida, and I was just curious if you guys might be able to speak on the 2-year program. I know you guys talked about the 3.5-year. Is there, similarities? I guess what would be the biggest difference between the two, 3.5 versus the 2-year program?
Sure. So I can speak to that. The basic Master of Architecture program is 3.5 years long. And for those who come in with a degree, an undergraduate degree in architecture, where you've taken required coursework such as studios and other courses, you can get what is essentially advanced standing into the 2-year. So that's determined upon your application, if you have the applicable degree and if you have the applicable required coursework. But after that, it's the same thing. The 2-year students come in the second year, and they have 4 semesters right alongside our 3.5-year students. So it's a fully integrated program from that point onward. You just come in with advanced standing and experience.
Okay, and that obviously involves a portfolio review of some sort. And I was looking at those requirements too, and I saw that there was no minimum and no maximum amount of projects on there. I was just curious I don't know, I mean, what would you say would be the best direction to go with at least a portfolio design for application?
This is a great question. So the portfolio that you use to apply, whether you're completely new to architecture and you might be coming into the 3.5-year program, or whether you have an undergraduate degree in architecture and you have studios that you can put in there, or whether you have a degree and you've even worked for a couple of years and you're coming into the advanced program. The portfolio is by far the thing that we look at the most. We look at grades, we look at recommendations, We look at your GPA. We look at tests if you provide the scores and so on. But we really look at the portfolio. The portfolio is your voice, and it couldn't be more important for you to spend time on presenting your work in a way that is compelling, well organized, graphically clear, and well edited. And so what I want to do is have Rohan, Matt, and Anna, I'd love for you guys to say something about the portfolio, because it can seem daunting and it can seem, unclear. But the thing that I would say before I turn it over is gather a lot of examples from fellow students. You can look online. You can ask students who've recently applied and been accepted, and start to look at what it means to create a really quality representation of your design and documentation skills. When we say no minimum or no maximum, there's probably a good number of projects, maybe 6 to 8, with personal work and adjacent work. But it's a super important part of your application. So at that, Rohan, Matt, or Anna, what would you say about the portfolio, both as an applicant and also as a student?
Yeah, just for quick information, Chase, are you currently doing an architecture degree for your bachelor's, or are you coming in with no architecture experience?
Yeah, no, I'm in an architecture degree right now.
Okay.
It's a bachelor's of design degree, so it's not accredited, but it's still a bachelor's of architecture.
Perfect. So I had something similar. I went to University of Florida, and theirs was also a Bachelor of Design, in quotes, in architecture. But at this point the kind of power that a portfolio can have. And when you mention the projects about the number, the quote I always kind of just go to is sometimes less is more. And so if you have 3 projects that you're very passionate about, and you've had plenty of opportunity to create, different drawings, maybe some models and imagery, and you feel very confident about those, then maybe just including those 3 might be perfect for you. On the other side of things, if you really, really want to express your kind of iterative process, and maybe you think that 6 projects are something that you want to show, then that's also a perfect opportunity. And I think to what Professor Yoakum had mentioned is you want to make sure that your portfolio has a voice to it, and it's not just another, almost similar to resumes. If your resume is just another one in the pile, then it's going to be a little hard for them to kind of gauge what kind of person you are. And so if you have any kind of creative output that you think is unique to you, absolutely go for it. I've had friends of mine who take a part of their portfolio to do a dedication to photography or purely model making. And so there's different avenues that you can take. And I'm sure Anna and Rohan can speak to it, but most importantly is definitely graphically and organizationally presenting your work in a really formatted and proper manner. That'll put you a step ahead.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that.
I just want to add a point. Of course, I'm speaking from my personal experience and perspective. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But I have applied to universities that specified exactly how the project should be sequenced, what I need to show first, which semester's work needs to be shown, maximum pages. I personally believe when you're doing your master's, your first design project in that university is pretty much going to be your portfolio. Like that is your first introduction. And I believe Georgia Tech really tries to see the person that is coming into the college. They're not looking at it as a GPA or a profile that is coming in, but more like a person. So I had like links to my music videos I did as a kid. Like it of course with architecture as well. But I believe it matters to Georgia Tech, the person that you are. And if you're able to communicate that along with being able to show the skills that you have, I think you'll be putting forward the right cards, and the rest is up to Tech to see if that's what fits the table.
Yeah. One more thing to add. I think that as Matt said, it's very important to edit. So just because you have a lot of drawings for a project does not mean that all of your drawings need to be included. I would look through them very carefully, and I would also have your friends in your program look through them, or just go over your portfolio with you before you turn it in. And I'm about to send a link in the chat. This is a link to our graduate ambassadors. So any of these people on here would be more than happy to answer specific questions. Matt, Rohan, and I are on here. But yeah, if you want to send your draft portfolio our way, we'll definitely take a look at it.
And I'm sure that several of you have looked at, there's ones on Issue. I can't remember the other sites that host all the portfolios, but just take a look online. I mean, you'll find a plethora of different portfolio types, and I can't remember Georgia Tech's requirements off the tip of my head. And I'm sure that looking at other universities, as Rohan mentioned, there's going to be page requirements. There's going to be a certain amount of projects that they may be limited to. I'm pretty sure Georgia Tech was just like, hey, like run free kind of thing. So I'd also highly recommend, if you haven't already, to create new portfolios for each school that you are applying to. Now, it's a tall task, and so I'm sure, and I did this myself, like you can kind of squeeze out maybe one or two, maybe three versions to apply for all of the schools. But for instance, if you have Georgia Tech, that's just like, hey, no page requirement, no sheet requirement, and all these things, then it could benefit from just doing a kind of wild one if you want to. So just don't limit yourself too much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, Anna, thanks for sharing the link. That's a great resource. People who've just done it, still building their portfolio, they see all kinds of stuff. The other thing I'd mention is if you have one or two mentors in your current program, professors, ask them to look at your draft portfolios and ask them just to be ruthless about it. Say, what do you think? And hopefully they'll give you honest answers. Okay. Anybody else have any questions for our session? So I'm going to put my email in the chat here. And please feel free to send me an email with any follow-up questions that you might have. And Anna, Matt, and Rohan, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. I hope you guys still have, looks like you still have power. The storm is passing. And hopefully we'll resume classes on Monday in person. And for those of you who joined us who are interested in Georgia Tech, just reach out to me and I'll put you in the right, on the course of getting you the right answer as you consider your application. Okay? So thanks everybody for joining today. I really appreciate it. All right. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.